what we'll do is in a moment, we'll just, sorry, Louise.
Yes.
But now I was just going to kind of sort of say, just before we do introductions, we're going to be live streaming, which I understand is now all happening. So we're now in public. And we have one of our member colleagues who is joining us online, and we'll do that introduction in a minute. And we have one of our co-optee colleagues who is also joining us online. And again, we'll do introductions in a moment. Just to kind of reiterate everybody, just so we're all clear, those of us in the chamber in person are but the privileged few. We are the ones who can vote on various matters, should we be required to. And any colleagues online can contribute to any discussion, debate. But unfortunately, the rules are such that their vote would not count in any formal decision that we may be asked to make. So that's just for information and for clarification for everybody's benefit. And so with that, we're obviously recording the event as well as live streaming. So we will be there in perpetuity. For as long as the internet exists, we will be accessible. Just to flag that for everybody's benefit. With that, could we then just go into introductions? And if I may suggest that we just go around the chamber first, and then we'll go online and then invite colleagues online just to introduce themselves one by one. So, Mara, I'm going to start with yourself, if you wouldn't mind. Sorry, Mara, could you use the mic?
My name is Councillor Humera Garacia, and I represent Haggerston Ward.
Great, thank you. And then everyone can hear then. Louise?
Thank you, Chair. Louise Humphreys. I'm the Acting Director of Legal, Democratic and Electoral Services, and more importantly, for the purposes of the Standards Committee, the Council's Monitoring Officer.
Hello, Chair. I'm Rob Miller, Strategic Director of Customer and Workplace. I'm here for Agenda Item 4.
Excellent.
Evening, Chair. I'm Feral Ertan, the independent person to the Standards Committee.
Hi, I'm Aoife Scannell. I'm a co-opted member, but I'm non-voting.
Okay, hi. Sure.
Councillor Shadiati, Clissold Ward.
Councillor Joseph O'Gundamer in Hackney Wick.
Great, thank you. And if we may then just now go to colleagues online. And we have, sorry, thanks. I can't see. So Nicola.
Hi, I'm Nicola Hans. I'm one of the co-opted members.
Great, thanks, Nicola. Anna.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name's Councillor Anna Lynch. Apologies that I can't be there in the chamber this evening.
Not at all. Good. Thanks for joining, Anna. Tessa.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Tessa Mitchell, and I'm the Governance Services Team Leader.
Great, thanks, Tessa. And
we have Mario.
We have Mario and Natalie, who also IT and Governance Services, respectively, who are with us this evening as well. So, good evening, everybody. If we could just sort of move through the agenda, we've got a couple of items. They're as set out. But first, we have the minutes from the previous meeting. Sorry, excuse me. And sorry, thank you, Natalie. Yes, absolutely. Apologies for absence first. So any apologies?
Troughton sent apologies.
Councillor Troughton, any other apologies? No. Okay, so if we could just note that, thank you. We've got declarations of interest. So any colleague, please do just declare now if there's any conflict. No, nothing, and no colleague online. No, fine, that's great, thank you. So now we move on to the first item. That's the minutes of the previous Standards Committee meeting. That's July of last year, so it was a while back. I'm going to rely on any colleague in the room who, or indeed online, who may have been present at that meeting to vouch for accuracy. So if we could just do accuracy first. Any comments on accuracy? No? No, great, thank you. So with that, we'll take the minutes as set out, thank you. Now, there were no kind of matters arising. If any colleague just wants to pick up on any of the kind of decisions that were reached or any of those actions that have flowed from that previous meeting, please do use this as an opportunity just as a sort of table those reflections. None? Okay, thank you. And then we move on to the first substantive item, if we may. They are. Yeah. All done. Okay. Yep, you got it. If we could just move on to the first item, annual report on compliance with guidance on members' use of ICT information. And Rob, you're here to take us through the report, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The report is actually covering 2 years because of the timings of the previous Standards Committee meeting, but I think looking forward, if we're returning to the Standards Committee meeting at this point in the year, that would actually fit into a neater cycle because it's normally based on the calendar year. I shan't read through the detail of the report. Hopefully it's all set out clearly. It follows a similar sort of areas of coverage of previous updates to Standards Committee, covering members' use of IT, any incidents relating to members' use of IT, and the training and governance arrangements in place, and then also gives a quick update in terms of where we are with work to explore further upgrades to the audiovisual equipment for live streaming of meetings of council and committees.
Anna, over to you. Floor's yours, Anna.
She's on mute.
Anna, you are on mute.
You're on mute.
Hi. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Miller, would it be pertinent to also advise members of the Standard Committee on the process of how IT equipment is administered to members, and also the process where it's removed from members as well?
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. Yes, members are issued with their IT equipment after election. That includes a data awareness training, which members do as new users of the council system. The report describes different offers of equipment which we make available for members, which offers different choices depending on their, on their needs and preferences. Overall, since we did the upgrades to members' equipment, which I think is about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I think members' feedback has been that's been a positive improvement. But again, we're always very keen to talk to members through the reference groups and direct contact with members about how we can make sure that we're meeting their needs and supporting them in their work. And then in terms of equipment being removed from members, we follow the same process as for officers. So accounts are suspended and archived, and equipment is returned and cleaned down and then reissued as required.
Thanks, Rob. Anna, is that okay? So any supplementary, any follow-on?
No, it's just obviously the process of actually getting equipment doesn't happen straight away, is it, once you're elected and such like. But obviously if you were to resign from a position, you are required usually to hand it in within a quite short period of time as well, aren't you?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Rob, for the report. I just want to ask, when we're talking about data protection guidance for members. I mean, I'm quite aware we've had training in the past, and I wanted to know how often should it be something on yearly? And secondly, with regards to the training that we've had, how easy is it for members to access it on intranet? Maybe if I want to just go over to think of, oh, I've done this training, but I just want to refresh myself. How easy is that for members to access intranet without having to go through member services? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Etty. We're making arrangements for a refresher as part of the wider refresher work that we do on a cyclical basis at the moment. So we'll be following that up. There's quite a lot of information about data protection and information security on the intranet, which is available to members in the same way that it is for officers. It's secured using your email account and then available to you through that. We're also very happy to answer any individual questions from members. Our data protection officer, James Isles, can be available to provide advice, because members have an unusual position where they have their own data protection responsibilities and their data protection responsibilities in their political roles, as well as they do in their councillor roles. So James can offer advice as well.
Any supplementary, Shadow? No, you're okay? No, great, thank you. Thanks, Rob. Thank you. Rob, can I just sort of ask and just sort of follow on the, reflecting on some of the investment that might be welcome and timely indeed, just in terms of hardware and equipment. So one's thinking about our live streaming kind of arrangements and whether or not the technology and the hardware that we have is perhaps sort of the best that it could possibly be. And perhaps there is sort of more updated set of equipment and so on and so forth. And particularly kind of sort of just obviously reflecting on accessibility to meetings, the live streaming kind of approach that we're taking, you know, as a council, and obviously just trying to make democracy and decision-making and accountability as openly available as possible. And whether or not now may be a timely moment just for the committee to kind of reflect and, on a recommendation around the council exploring what kind of system, what kind of costs may be attached to that system. Would now be a good moment just to start reflecting on that from your perspective and from the service area's perspective. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I don't think anyone would see the pandemic as a positive thing in any way, but out of what has been learned through the pandemic, I think the routine live streaming of meetings has really helped open up council democracy, and that's within Hackney, but also more broadly. And I think that's a really positive thing that is welcomed in its own right. Over the last few years, since the initial work to set up in a state of urgency, the ability for online meetings, and then when the laws changed to continue to have live streaming, we've made work with external partners to try to improve that. Google, who provide the Google Meet service we use, have also invested in upgrades to that, which makes live streaming to YouTube simpler and more reliable than was the case in the past. We've also invested in the networks in the council buildings, and I think at Cabinet's, but it was back end of last year, there were further capital investments agreed then, which will help with the bandwidth and reliability of our connections, which will, one of the benefits will be improved live streaming. Where we are now is looking at the plans in terms of the equipment within the committee rooms. We're investing in an upgraded display, which will then allow better and sharper imagery on the screen behind the chair, and then we need to look separately at the audiovisual equipment, which will then follow. We have carried out survey work, which was done 2 years ago, I think, or maybe 3 years ago, looking at the cabling and fabric of the building, obviously with a very heritage building with complex kind of aspects of the building we need to take care of in terms of any invasive work. The surveys were helping us identify what cabling could be reused. I think the positive finding from that was a reasonable amount of it can, which reduces cost but also reduces disruption to the building. So one of the priorities for the year ahead is to pull together the detail for what we would do with that. Then, as noted in the finance comments, we'll need to pull forward capital proposals for the investment of that. But I think there's a general, and I see Louise to my side, from the monitoring officer perspective, an enthusiasm for us to move forward with that and see what we can do. So there has been work, and there's more we would like to do.
Thank you, Louise. The microphone. If I may abuse the position of chair and just follow on from that, I mean, if there's any perhaps words of encouragement to other colleagues on other committees or commissions, or indeed on cabinet, that this committee could say just to support some of those, should we call them developing programs, and the finance required to support and deliver those programs, then I'm sure the committee and colleagues on the committee would be more than delighted to add their support to that call for that investment, basically, and to bring that work forward. It is falling outside of our terms of reference, I realise that, but there's nothing wrong with making the odd recommendation to other colleagues, I think. Any other comments on the report that Rob has presented, just in regards to ICT and update? No. Well, it's good to see that. Oh, sorry, please.
Well, just from an outside perspective, kind of to pass on a commendable how few incidents that were reported in terms of lost devices, or I thought that was quite amazing compared to the workplaces I've been in, but people aren't perhaps as careful. So just commend the team. Yeah.
No, just to say thank you, and I think that reflects the seriousness with which members are taking the security of the equipment and information. So, yeah, it's very positive to see, I think.
Great, thank you, that's well said comment, and likewise, if I may just echo your kind of compliments from the chair just for the work and indeed the work over the last few years, looking back at that very helpful chart and that table that you've included in the report. I think it demonstrates what I'd like to perhaps suggest to member colleagues is not only the efficiency and the effectiveness of all of the colleagues in the service area around ICT, but also the responsibility shown and the seriousness shown by member colleagues across the council in looking after the equipment that they are kind of using for and on behalf of the council and the public sector. So I think there's a good exchange going on there between members and officers. So thank you very much for making sure all of those let's call them sort of learning moments and educational moments are all in place so that we all understand, you know, who we can go to when something doesn't work, and indeed just generating that sense of responsibility for the equipment that we're using and borrowing. Rob.
If I could just hijack a moment as well, I'd also like to thank Mario for his tireless work supporting all the different committee meetings with the live streaming. He's been an absolute trooper through it, and thank you, Mario.
Compliments indeed. There you go, Mario. Yeah, one for the scoreboard there, I think. Yeah. No, thank you. Okay, so with that, we've got just a sort of a couple of recommendations. They are both about noting, and I won't read them out. They're kind of sort of very, very clearly there, attached to the report. Can we note the report as set out and the recommendations, colleagues, if that's okay? Yep, thank you. Great, thank you, Anna, and thank you, Rob. Thank you. Great, so we move on to the next item on the agenda, item 5, which is a review of Register of Interest Declarations of Gifts and Hospitality. Again, the report is set out in the agenda, and I'll hand over to Louise to take us through the report. Louise, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So members will recall that when the council looked at and revised its code of conduct, we also revised the forms that we used for declarations or the register of interests, and also our gifts and hospitality forms. And this is the first time that we've reported to committee on the matter of those forms since those changes were made. So they took effect from the elections in May 2022, and you'll see from the report that all members of the council completed those forms as required by law, and as we would expect them to have done after their election in May 2022. And since then, up until the end of January, 11 members have updated their forms, and again, those revisions have been published on the council's website. In terms of specific declarations, you have the table there just as an indication of the number of declarations that members make at various different committees and full council. We do, in terms of declarations, we have specifically looked at those declarations that are covered within the forms themselves. Often, frequently, members will declare an interest because, for example, at planning subcommittee, another member of council may be speaking for or against an application. Those are not strictly necessary to be made, but again, members do that for transparency and openness, and that's to be welcomed. So turning to gifts and hospitality, again, you will see from the report that as at towards the end of January this year, gifts and hospitality forms have been completed by 38 members. And members will also recall our code of conduct requires members to disclose either gifts that they have accepted or indeed rejected with a value of £25 or more, either within 28 days of its receipt or within 28 days of an offer being made, and that's for a gift or hospitality. I think it's really important to point out and ensure that it is understood that a failure by an elected member, or the fact that a form for a member does not exist in respect of gifts and hospitality, or an update to the register of interest, does not mean that there has been a failure on the part of a member. Members are only required to complete the forms either when their interests change, and they do that within 28 days, or when they have accepted or rejected hospitality. So I wouldn't want it thought that the fact that we have forms from 38 elected members in terms of gifts and hospitality means that somehow there has been a failing on the part of other members. It is probably reflective, and indeed should be reflective, of the fact that they have received no such offers or accepted no such offers. So with that said, the only final point is that members will also recall from the annual report, we provide a brief summary of the broad categories for which we have code of conduct complaints, and as for the last round of reporting, none of those complaints relate to matters in respect of interests and or gifts and hospitality, and I'm able to confirm that as at this meeting, that also applies this year too. Those figures obviously take us to the end of the municipal year and will be properly reported for this municipal year in your next standards annual report. So with that, Chairman, happy to add and accept any questions.
Yep, thank you, Louise. Thank you very much indeed. Just opening it to colleagues in the chamber and online. Any questions that on the report as set out? Oh, Nicola, the floor's yours, Nicola.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the report. Really clear and helpful. I think that point that you made, Louise, about not returning a form on things like gifts and hospitality is obviously not indicative of anything wrong, which is really obviously positive, and we wouldn't want there to be any particular burden on people unnecessarily filling out forms for no reason. But I was wondering if there is at any point any kind of sense check in the cycle in terms of annually or whenever, of just asking the question of people, have you at any point declined or received something, just to get that sense, or is it all based on the kind of proactive acknowledgement of the individual to complete a form?
We generally approach it from the perspective of relying on members to complete the form. as part and parcel of member training, which we do on an annual basis in respect of matters relating to the Code of Conduct, which includes gifts and hospitality. We do spend a considerable part of that talking about which interests have to be registered and how to go about declaring those, and also the gifts and hospitality side of things. And we're shortly to be publishing to all members the training for this municipal year, which we're trialling a different method of delivery, which will be through a written briefing of matters that may be of interest, developments, interesting cases that have happened across the country with respect to codes of conduct, complaints and decisions. And as part and parcel of that, there will be a reminder about ensuring that their members' interest forms are correct and updated, and also the gifts and hospitality. So we deal with it that way, rather than in a sense, sort of going back to members and say, have you done it? Because it is the personal responsibility of the member to do, and there are consequences if they don't.
No, thank you very much. That's very clear.
Great, thank you, Nicola, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Please do use this as an opportunity. No, okay. Louise, thank you very much indeed for this sort of roundup. And it's incredibly kind of helpful, I think, for members as well to have sight of this, just to understand. And I suppose it just sort of picks up a little on what you've been saying and what I know you're thinking about bringing forward very soon. It's just to kind of ensure that it's always at the front of members' minds, really. In other words, they're continually reminded, myself included, you know, to do this and who it is and how it is that you can make sure that one as an individual and as an elected member can just make sure everything goes onto the register as and when it should be, and reported correctly. So I think the more reminders for members, the better. And thank you very much indeed for the team's work on all of this to date. And it's good that members have responded in the way that they have, I think. I'm sure colleagues in the chamber would think the same. But with that, if there are no other comments from any colleagues, then could we just move to the recommendations, which are as set out on the report, to note the report indeed. Can we note the report, colleagues?
Noted.
Great, thanks, Anna. With that, that brings us to the end of the formal business. I haven't been notified of any other business, so unless any colleagues have any other business that they wish just to table, please do use this as an opportunity. Not seeing any kind of hands up or calls from a corner of the room saying I've got some AOB, and I don't think any colleague online likewise. So with that, we've got just some dates noted for the forthcoming formal meetings of the committee. So we provisional. Oh, they are provisional, are they, Natalie? Oh, okay. These are provisional and drafts. So is there anything that you would want us all to do, like reply, respond? Not at this point. Okay. So the provisional dates to be adopted by council are proposed to be 9th of July, 12th of November, and the 11th of February this time next year, basically. With that, can draw the meeting to a close and thank everybody for the time that you put aside this evening to join. And just to thank Ferial, Nicola and AFE, thank you very much indeed for your contributions and for putting the time aside this evening. Thank you, it's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much, colleagues. Oh, and we can stop the recording now, I think, can't we? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Bye.